afternoon and welcome to City Club. I'm Jill Bernstein, Vice President of City Club, standing in today for President Allison Roberts, who is enjoying a well-deserved getaway following her retirement. I'm really proud to serve in this capacity because I believe so deeply in our mission, which is to inform, connect, and engage our community as we work to strengthen the civic health of our region. Since 1993, we have emphasized civil conversations and listening to others, really almost unique in today's climate and certainly something to treasure. Today is part 2 of the election forums that we have featuring candidates for the County Council and the Bellingham Thank You. Perfect, and thank you. And the Bellingham City Council. It is our goal to make this as interesting and as informative as possible. The ballots will be soon to arrive, and I know that all of you are hoping to go deeper with the candidates about their ideas, about leadership, and their positions on the issues. And hopefully our questions will lead to the information that you're looking for. In an effort to time our programs in a way to be most meaningful, next month will be on the 3rd Wednesday, not the 4th Wednesday. This should allow the program to closely coincide with the ballot drop. So be sure to note the date change, and then we will be focused on the race for Port Commissioner and the initiatives that will appear on the November ballot. And this will include the proposed expansion of the Port Commission from 3 to 5 commissioners, a new levy for school expenses, and changes to how our county functions as recommended by the Charter Review Commission. I know that you won't want to miss this, so remember 3rd Wednesday, October 15th. November will also have a change to the 3rd Wednesday because of Thanksgiving, and then we will be focused on public health, sort of an important and timely issue. This morning, I want to acknowledge that this beautiful venue is the ancestral home of the Coast Salish people who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin since time immemorial. Please join me in expressing our deepest respect and gratitude for our indigenous neighbors, the Lummi Nation and the Nooksack Tribe, for their enduring care and protection for this beautiful land. For those of you who want to know more about what it means to be here since time immemorial, and to go more deeply into the connection between our indigenous neighbors and the land, I'd like to direct you to a very special film that was created by Children of the Setting Sun for the Ferndale School Districts. It's really special. It's 42 minutes long. You can find this by just looking at the Children of the Setting Sun website, and you will see that you can easily find this, and the information will change the way you think forever about the land and the people who have lived here forever. As always, I'd like to thank all of the volunteers who make our programs possible. Jane Bright, who herds the cats on the program committee, to bring quality programming before you every month, and a big thanks to our caterer, Good Bowls, and to Talking to Crows for their work in capturing the video from our programs. And to the volunteers who help with setup, cleanup, and the myriad details that allow this all to move so smoothly each month. And if you can help us, please let us know. There are many tasks, both big and small, although frankly, most of them are small. And I'm hoping that you'll say yes. Just let us know if you too can be a volunteer, and we would welcome you to be part of the team that makes this all happen. But there's another way that you can help, and that is with financial support. Right now we have a list of sponsors that appear on the tent on all of your tables, and these are organizations and individuals who value the role of City Club in keeping us alive to facilitate these civic conversations. This month, we are so pleased to have a new sponsor who has joined us at really what is for us an unprecedented level of financial support, and that is Puget Sound Energy. We are deeply grateful that they have stepped forward to support us, along with our longstanding friends that include Peace Health, St. Joseph's Medical Center, the law offices of Baron Quinn Maxwell, Bruce and Claudia Deasond, Danny Neal, a real estate broker with the Mull Yacht Group, Firehouse Arts and Event Center, Culshan CPAs, the Opportunity Council, Pacific Continental Realty, Unity Care Northwest, Village Books, Western Washington University, Whatcom Community Foundation, and the Salish Current. I'd like a strong round of support for these Friends of City Club. And I'd also like to tell you that you too can raise your support to the sponsorship level. And if you know a business or an organization that can join us as a sponsor, please let us know. We'll help you with the outreach and help them join us as we try to move forward with the highest quality possible for our presentations each month. When we look at our budgets, these sponsors are the ones that make a difference in what is possible for us to present. And on that note, you'll see also on the tent on your table, the board has voted to raise dues for the coming year. This was necessary because of increased costs for our venue, video services, and other costs related to the operation of City Club. Post-COVID, we were operating at a deficit budget, which was no longer feasible. And so after long, deep consideration of all of our options, this dues increase became necessary. You want to save money? Renew early. It's easy as pie at bellinghamcityclub.org. And for any of you who are not yet members, you'll see on the table a blue sheet of paper that has information about how easy it is to join City Club, or Zach wearing his green shirt at the front table can help you to join today, or you too can just go online to our website at bellinghamcityclub.org. All of this is easy, and you can help us to be a strong voice for democracy in our community. Now, please silence your cell phones as I introduce our moderator for today's forum, who is Jane Bright, the fearless and most talented leader of the program committee. Join me in welcoming Jane.
Thank you, Jill. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, okay. And you know, it's an honor to be a cat herder with the program committee, because we've got some very, very talented, wonderful people to work with who work really hard to bring the programs to you. Today we're going to be doing one city council race, District 6, and two, is that? Okay. 2 county council races. Michael's making, oh yes. Thank you, gentlemen. While they come up, let me just tell you how everything's going to work. And we know, and we thank you for being here. We know our members and guests are deeply committed to this community. And so we hope by bringing these forums to you that you'll feel more informed as you fill out your ballots in November. We also like to thank all of our candidates. Putting yourself out there and running for office is a big commitment, and we thank all our candidates for doing that. Please note that we do not take questions from the audience during the candidate forums. If you have questions for our October program, please email them to us, and we will take a look at those. Candidates have been sent the rules, and each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. And our timers, where's our timers? We've got a 15-second warning and then a stop sign for them to stop speaking. And thank you. Jim and Amy are on the program committee, and we're going to alternate the first questions for our candidates. So as soon as we've got people settled and ready to go, are we settled and ready to go, gentlemen?
Mic check. Oh, great.
Hello?
Okay. I'd like to start with Mr. Lilliquist, and the question is, why should you be reelected?
Sure. First of all, thanks to everyone for coming here. It's good to see you. I've actually been a member of the City Club longer than I've been on the City Council. And I think those kind of go together. One of the reasons why you should re-elect me is I'm an active, engaged, listening kind of public servant who does things even when he's not elected, such as the City Club. As a city council member, I'm one of the most consistently visible and active and engaged and transparent city council members, a true public servant who has proven results year after year. No one in this office should be sitting still. Every year there are new challenges, and every year the City Council and the City of Bellingham tries to move forward in new ways to meet our new challenges. So I'm a change maker who consistently pushes to adopt new ideas, create new programs, create new funding sources for programs to meet our challenges. I've been helping to make change happen year after year, but keep in mind that the City Council is a team sport. And I'm a team player. We work together down at City Hall. The mayor, council members, community members, looking for best practices of other communities. These things go forward slowly, steadily, and I hope what I call a ratchet, which is a mechanism that goes forward and then never goes backward. That's my model for how we make positive change here in Bellingham. Housing is a major issue here in Bellingham, and my opponent would like to describe us as being very different on the issues, but I see us as actually similar. We both believe in freeing the market so it can produce more housing. We also both believe in public investment and public interaction to create housing. And although I've never heard Mr. Redding talk about homelessness, I'm sure he supports the housing first model and good shelter services to transition people into housing.
I'm Andrew Redding. During my 3 terms as Whatcom Democrats chair, we flipped all 3 42nd LD seats. Overall, we turned a purple county blue. Through Community First Whatcom, my proposal to raise Bellingham's minimum wage by $2 was adopted by initiative. Bellingham now has the 4th most unaffordable housing in the nation. This calls for real change, not more of the same. The incumbent opposed Mayor Lund's ordinance to repeal parking mandates that prioritize cars and pavement over the new housing we desperately need. He's now backed and financed by the NIMBY coalition that created our housing crisis in the first place and made us the 4th most unaffordable. It's no coincidence the mayor and the 5 pro-housing council members have turned down his requests for endorsement. So much for team sport. This is a referendum on housing. I ask your vote to bring about real change with Mayor Lund and other elected officials. He said 16 years. Give me 4 and watch me deliver again.
Thank you. One of the things I want to mention is that I will be repeating the questions between candidates. So the next question is for Mr. Redding. Imagine that the year is 2045 and Bellingham is home to 130,000 residents, 30,000 more than today. What does Bellingham look like? What's Bellingham's character compared to today? And what will you have accomplished in office to get us there?
Okay, so in answer to that, that's why I'm proposing that we adopt the SMART code, which is a new urbanist code. It's a climate action code, which is why I'm endorsed by national climate leader Bill McKibben. It's also an urban infill code. It's one that discourages the sprawl that is now going on at a large pace in Whatcom County. So it's a way of making sure that we make the adjustments so that we deal with climate change, we lower emissions, and we make it possible for people to be in dense neighborhoods where they can walk to school, to businesses, to stores, to coffee shops, to all the things they need to, or by bike, but be able to get away from complete dependence on the motor car. So that's an important part of it. The other part is I'm proposing a $100 million revolving fund, similar to the one in Montgomery County, Maryland. According to our state treasurer, we can take 60 million, that's 10% of the amount sitting in banks at any given time from of the county's funds, and we can put that into a revolving loan fund for housing, similar to what we did in Montgomery County, Maryland. So we need to do this because we're not going to get federal funds, and we need to be able, therefore, to do this in a much more self-reliant way. It doesn't require taxes. It's something that works by taking 65% of the units and renting them out at full price, and then using that to subsidize the other 35% as permanent affordable. Thank you.
Mr. Lilliquist, the question. Imagine the year is 2045 and Bellingham is home to 130,000 residents. What does Bellingham look like? What's Bellingham's character compared to today? And what would you have accomplished in office to get us there?
I hope that Bellingham doesn't look that different than it looks now. I hope it's still a community where we have walkable neighborhoods, where we feel like it's a place that we can interact with people that we know. It's a place that still respects our waterways and our lakes and our natural environment. There's still green spaces, there's still neighborhoods, but there will also be, I hope, a fruition of what we've already been planning for, which is a downtown that is even denser and more lively than it is now. Urban villages that start to rival the downtown for their liveliness and their density, for more density along our transportation corridors. I was earlier this year at a Cascadia Innovation Corridor Conference on housing, state and regional officials getting together. How do we solve our housing crisis? And one of the take-homes is go big on multifamily. The only way to really accommodate all the people we need in a climate-friendly manner is to create density where it makes sense. And so we already identified where density makes sense. So what I have been doing, what I'll continue to do, is work towards that vision where we keep our city compatible with the natural environment and the world around us and the human values that we need, but still provides accommodation for more development, because cities are actually the lowest carbon footprint that you can have, because we keep things close, infrastructure costs, transportation costs. So I believe in a green and thriving and livable city, and to do that, we need to create density gently in our neighborhoods and density vigorously where it's appropriate.
Mr. Lilliquist, the next question is for you. Given the high cost, low return for private developers to build affordable housing, what can and should the city do to increase low-income housing?
Well, one of the things we should do, we're already doing, which is sweeping away outdated zoning requirements which prevent certain types of housing from being built in the past. We already have City Council's already green-lighted a collapsing and simplification of a residential code. So rather than having 100 different residential areas, slightly different all across the city, we're collapsing them into 3, high, medium, and low density. So we're trying to simplify what it is that developers have to go through to establish housing. But that's not actually the biggest problem. If we remove the barriers on the development community, what we will get is what developers already know they can build successfully and profitably and have funding for. And we already know what happens when we remove zoning restrictions. We have studies in places like Minneapolis, and you do get more housing production, 0.8% new housing production, which is non-trivial when you add that year after year. But what you don't get, what studies show, is you get higher end and upper income housing. You don't get the affordability at lower levels. So for affordability, we need direct government involvement through programs, public-private partnerships, continued subsidy. I'd like the idea of a revolving home loan fund, but $100 million is beyond our financial reach. When I started in office, we had no money for housing locally. With my votes and my campaigning door-to-door for the home fund, we now have up to $10 million a year that we leverage to create affordable housing. We don't build $10 million worth of housing, we leverage that 8 to 1 to get more housing out of your public dollars.
Mr. Redding, same question. Given the high cost, low return for private developers to build affordable housing, what can and should the city do to increase low-income housing?
Well, again, on the $100 million revolving fund proposal, according to the county treasurer, we can reliably and safely take $60 million out of the $600 million that's in national bank deposits at any given time and use that for a revolving loan fund. That's just the county funds. The city funds can be added to that. And if you add those and you add in going to labor unions that have interest now in using their pension funds for that purpose, the Wacom Community Foundation is wanting to get into this as well with philanthropic dollars. Hell yeah, we can get to 100 million, and we gotta do that. There's no other way that we're going to be able to build that scale. Okay, we have to narrow that gap in the housing supply. Another way we can do that is to be go much further on the matter of density. Most of the proposal even now is for most of the neighborhoods to be low density. And we've got to get to at least medium density. And we can do that through the smart code that I proposed. It's one that dictates the outer forms of buildings, right? So if you're concerned about your neighborhood character, well, that's already taken care of through those forms. You won't get an apartment building right next to a single family home, okay, with that? That's the beauty of it. But the other part of it is it also makes it possible to build by right. As long as you go to the forms, you can build by right, and it gets rid of all the permitting delays, which are killing housing right now. That's why it's so damned expensive.
Mr. Redding, the next question is for you. We'll start. What city actions and funding do you propose to revitalize and grow retail businesses in Bellingham's downtown and urban villages, including how would you entice more shoppers?
Well, for one thing, the smart growth that I'm proposing is one that would put more of an emphasis on pedestrian friendliness downtown, on walkability, on all the ways that other cities have gone and done downtowns like that. They have set aside streets that don't even have cars on them in order to encourage that kind of thing. And they've seen huge increases in in the earnings of the businesses there when they do that. We also have to get rid of all those parking lots downtown that make it business unfriendly. It's been shown that too many parking lots in an urban area decreases interest in shopping there, and more people go to the malls or to the big box stores. So that's one part of it. We also need to shore up our finances because the city finances are heading down a deep hole at this point. And so we're going to have to do something about the property tax. I'll be blunt with you here. The IMAN limitations mean that we can only increase the city budget by 1% per year on that, right? And so I want to propose that we actually increase have a separate tax dedicated just to the library, okay, a library fund, which I think would be very popular, passed very easily in our community, and would free up the library funds for the general fund. And that would make it possible to do all the other things we need to maintain.
Mr. Lilliquist, what city actions and funding do you propose to revitalize and grow retail businesses in Bellingham's downtown and urban villages, including how to entice more shoppers?
Sure, I'm going to use some of my time to talk about property taxes, though. Mr. Redding is right. We have a structural problem with our property taxes, a limit which we cannot get out of. I was down in Olympia lobbying the legislature to try to remove that property caps limit, to remove the structural deficit that not only Bellingham, but all local cities are facing. So that's a serious problem. Our retail businesses need to be supported primarily, I think, through feelings of safety and caretaking downtown in our commercial areas, frankly, all over the city, but particularly in commercial areas. There needs to be the actuality and the perception of safety. I think we can do that not by treating the people downtown, which are off-putting, as the problem to be eliminated, but as people to be helped. So in my mind, dealing with our issues with mental illness and homelessness and drug addiction and better public safety and better cleanup of the alleys, these sort of basic public safety and caretaking things, that's all we need to bring back the vitality, or not all, but it's one of the main things that the government can do to bring back the vitality of the downtown and our other commercial areas. I'm going to be a contrarian on the parking issue. The most lively and walkable part of downtown is Railroad Avenue, which also is the area with the greatest amount of parking. Parking is not our enemy if it's done well. Parking is not the enemy if parking is not primary. If we focus on the street fronts and on the walkability and on the liveliness of it, and rather than on cars, parking isn't necessarily our enemy when it's well managed. I think we need to focus on lively streetscapes and not prioritize parking, but not make it the enemy either.
Mr. Lilliquist, the next question will start with you. Behavioral health programs that divert people from jail require a professional workforce that does not exist in either Bellingham or the state. What would you do to train, attract, and retain this workforce?
This is really important. This is an important issue. I think it's one of the fundamental things keeping us back, is having a workforce that's trained, respected, and paid well. City of Bellingham has no healthcare workers, no public health role. It's not our direct role. So what I've been doing indirectly is trying to build that in wherever we talk. I want to talk about the grant funding. I tell the people applying, don't cut your request down low to underpay your staff. When I was working on the jail implementation task force, I was saying, let's put in there as one of our things that we need to train and support the mental health care providers. We need to treat them with respect. I proposed a program, sort of like a GI Bill, where if you want to train up workshop to advance your mental health training or your substance abuse addiction training, we will pay for that service. All you have to do is promise to continue working here in the community for a couple of years, and after that's done, you can move on. If you leave early, fine, just pay us back on a prorated basis. The lack of respect and pay, and therefore retention for our direct frontline service providers, that is a fundamental problem across the spectrum, and it's a very important question. Thank you.
Mr. Redding, the same question. Behavioral health programs that divert people from jail require a professional workforce that does not exist in Bellingham or the state. What would you do to train, attract, and retain this workforce?
First of all, I agree with what Michael just said about that, but I do want to signal a much bigger problem here. Unless we get control over the gap between the housing needs we have and the reality here, we're going to be funneling more and more people on a conveyor belt into homelessness. And there's nothing more expensive than having to do precisely this kind of stuff. It's extraordinarily expensive to have to deal with people who are unhoused. If they are housed, it's a fraction of the cost, a fraction of the cost. So that's why it's absolutely essential. We must house everybody, and I do mean it, everybody, no exceptions. And for that, we're going to have to do this very drastic change. It'll be uncomfortable for some. We got to get rid of the zoning, the exclusionary zoning that exists. We got to replace it with a smart code that sweeps it all away, that allows for greater density. As Bill McKibben says, denser cities make for a cleaner planet. And we've got to, as well, make it possible to have more units per unit of land, because land costs aren't going down. And the only way that we can make things more affordable through the market, and most of this is going to have to come through the market anyways, is by allowing the small housing that we've not allowed because of the exclusionary zoning, the smaller units that are more efficient and so forth.
Next question is for you, Mr. Redding. The city is facing a $10 million budget shortfall. How would you increase revenues if you support cutting expenses? Where specifically would you cut?
Well, once again, I've already shared with you a proposal I would like to see on the ballot a proposal for a dedicated fund out of our property taxes for our library that would release funds presently used for the library system into the general fund. Okay, so that's one proposal I have. But the other thing goes back to, again, my very bold housing policies, because if we were to actually densify the way we need to do here, think how many more people we have per acre at that point. It was the 130,000 Bellingham that you're talking about, right? And at that point, what's happening, as long as they're all getting housed right here in existing neighborhoods, they're contributing to the tax base, and the marginal cost for utilities and for streets and for the fire, EMS, and police is very small by comparison. You don't have to build new police stations, new fire stations, so forth. You can just upgrade the ones we have and get better response times that way. So again, we must do drastic change on housing because we are the fourth worst in the country, by far the worst in Washington State. There are only 3 in California. They're all in LA County that are worse. This is shameful. It's not okay, and I will not stand for it. And if I get elected, I'm not going to be sitting behind a dais. I'm going to be working with others to get those revolving loan funds in place to build the housing.
Mr. Lilliquist, the city is facing a $10 million budget shortfall. How would you increase revenues if you support cutting expenses? Where specifically would you cut?
Yeah, we are facing a structural budget problem, and it is large, and it's going to be painful. Earlier this year, the Washington State Legislature faced a similarly painful decision, and they cut in areas where no one wanted to cut, and we're going to have to do the same. The mayor is proposing a special public safety tax, and this public safety tax could bring in about half the money we need to close that budget gap. So that is not new taxes to add services like public defenders or police officers range for it. This is new money to prevent cuts to those existing services. So that's halfway to our solution. The other half, I'm afraid, we'll have to cut from actual programs and personnel that need to be cut. I don't know exactly what the mayor's proposing yet. I think we see that at our next meeting, but she's been very clear that cuts will be coming. We've already done a number of things to shift around costs, reallocate where things are. We've already, found several $1 million in annual savings, but that still leaves us with the deficit. So where would we cut? I'm not so sure, but I know where we would try not to cut, and that is in personnel. The human capital at the city are the most important thing. We need to retain that human capital as much as possible, even if it means that we're asking people to work under difficult circumstances with less resources, because letting those people go is something you often cannot get back. That said, I think there will be also people will be letting go in some of our non-essential areas. So we need to keep our basic public essential services going and to try to minimize the cuts as much as possible.
Mr. Lilliquist, what solutions do you support to reduce access to and the use of harmful drugs? What role does the city have, if any, to care for those substance abuse disorder and mental health issues?
This is a difficult question for me because I think the best thing we can do with regard to stopping drugs committing in our community is really outside of the city or the city alone control. We recently rejoined the county's drug task force. We are tracking down and prosecuting drug traffickers, but that's not a matter of city policy, right? It isn't like the city council said, hey, let's go after drug dealers. We've always been going after drug dealers. So there's not much more I can add on the fact that we need to go after drug dealers who are victimizing. Flip that around, though. The people who are addicted to drugs, recovery is a serious, difficult, time-consuming, deeply... it is difficult when you've ever been in recovery yourself or helped someone in recovery. And so what the city can do and what the city is doing is supporting those behavioral health services. Again, keep in mind, the city does not have any public health officials on staff. That has never been traditionally our job. Whatcom County Health Department has stepped up amazingly. There's an entire division that didn't used to exist at the Whatcom County level for stepping up on these. We have now county-wide coordination as on the opiate addiction. I'm missing an event today, and I'll go to one tomorrow that has to do with All Hands Whatcom addressing drug addiction. So the city of Bellingham's primary role is as a funder for these services. We need to support our community members as they recover. So let's continue prosecuting against those who would sell drugs, and let's continue to help those people who are addicted to those drugs.
Right. Mr. Redding, what solutions do you support to reduce access to and use of harmful drugs? What role does the city have, if any, to care for those with substance abuse disorder and/or mental health illnesses?
Yeah, let's be honest about this. The reason it's become such a big problem here again is homelessness. And for those of you who think that homelessness is caused by addiction, no, it's not. Nationwide studies have shown that there is absolutely no link between the rates of homelessness and the rates of drug addiction across the country. The one thing that is the driver across the entire spectrum, across the country, is median rent. And so once again, we're back to the same thing I've been emphasizing over and over again. We're not going to get control over that until we actually get control of getting rid of, as I say, our exclusionary zoning on the one hand, and also really building affordable housing at scale. That means way beyond what we've been doing here and doing it with our own resources, because we're not going to have federal funds for this for the foreseeable future if we're smart about this. So we got to be smart about what's going on. We got to rely on our own resources here. But, it's been shown in Montgomery, Maryland, you can do this. Montgomery County, sorry. So we have to look at the big picture here, you see. And the other thing, too, you put people on the street. Housing is a human right, for Christ's sake. You put people on the street like that, and what are they going to do to try to... It's such a horrible existence. It's so painful. When I see that, I am outraged by it, okay? And it's all because of our housing policy in large measure. And with that, we're making everything really expensive for everything, like having to cover that mess, okay. the mess it makes for our downtown businesses and so forth.
The final question is for Mr. Redding to start. While Bellingham largely supports efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, solutions like bike lanes have proven difficult to implement. What else should the city do to meet our climate goals, and what are practical realities to implement them?
Well, first of all, I've never owned a motor vehicle my whole life. And before you call me ableist or something, I'm a 72-year-old, and I don't have an e-bike. And I get around everywhere on my bike, okay? So it is possible. It is possible to do without that. Now, why have I done that? Because I've known for the past half century, I've understood those Mauna Loa charts, you know, showing the CO2 going up, 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 up. And we're not going to get any control over that until we give up our complete love and adoration of the automobile. We've got to get smarter about that. We've got to make it so that we're creating walkable, bikeable neighborhoods. There's going to be resistance to that. Yes, I'm willing to put up with that resistance. We have to do that if we're not going to go off of a climate cliff. It's just a reality. I'm not somebody who minces on this. I don't try to appeal to every group here. Very clear. I have named the people who have caused our problem here, I mean, as a group. And we've got to get away from what has caused this problem, because it's what's causing every other problem, from homelessness to the fact that our emissions are soaring because we're causing sprawl, because we're not allowing the kind of density and infill that we need here in Bellingham. That's just the reality. I'm just calling it out. It's the reality. We can't pretend, we can't say, you know, we have a blue and green flag, therefore we're environmental. We've got to actually put our actions where our words are.
Thank you. And Mr. Lilliquist, the last question. While Bellingham largely supports efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, solutions like bike lanes have proven difficult to implement. What else should the city do to meet our climate goals, and what are the practical realities to implement them?
Well, first of all, thank you for coming and being engaged in the community. I'm going to differ with that, except for the Holly Street bike lane. We have actually very successfully implemented a lot of bike infrastructure, so much so that we've had to update the bicycle master plan early because we were making our way through that list. So I think bike lanes are actually, Holly, otherwise is succeeding. We looked when I helped push forward the new climate action task force to go further than we'd ever gone before. We identified major areas where the biggest savings would be achieved. Transportation is one of them, and heating of our buildings and the heating the water in our buildings. And so one of the things that I did is I voted to enact some of the strictest residential energy codes in the state. Those energy codes are now adopted as a statewide standard. We could only go so far because state law doesn't allow us to adopt those same energy codes for multifamily buildings and commercial buildings, and so we're going to have the state take action on that. Transportation is the other big one. So Mr. Redding is right. Bicycles are a really great alternative. No shame, I use an e-bike. That's just how I'm rolling these days. So the city did obtain a grant, and we've now added public charging stations around the community. That's important because when you travel, it's important that you at your destination, you also know there'll be a charger. Otherwise, we're only providing the EV charging option for people who have a home of their own and a place to plug in their own car. So public EV charging station, we've done a good job on, but I think we need to double that for sure.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you both for participating today. And And if I could have Mr. Christensen and Ms. Reinstra join us, please. And as they are coming up with their tent cards, I hope. Thank you. This is for District 3, which if you look, I was trying to get a map so you could see it's big, and it's part of Bellingham, and it goes all the way up to the border in a lot of our most rural sections. So how are you? We can give you a hand with those mics if needed. So.
I think good.
You okay? All right, we want everyone comfy. Welcome to you both. And I'd like to ask my audience to pay attention. Thank you. Okay, so this is for an open position, an open seat. So the question, and we'll start with Mr. Christensen, is why should you be elected over your challenger?
Yeah, thank you so much. So a little bit about me. I was the mayor of Sumas during the 3 floods and also during COVID. That started my electoral experience. And in that time, I was able to bring a lot of people together. If you remember those floods, they were very impactful to my district. And being able to work together with people from all walks of life and bringing that collaboration was something that even in a difficult situation, we were able to do a lot of great things to help a lot of people. So that kind of started my love for elected service. I would also say that right after my term ended, I acted as the flood recovery manager for Whatcom County, the sheriff's office. And during that role, I was able to start that process of getting funding that we needed to help rebuild homes. And we've been seeing the fruits of all that work just recently in my current role as the Whatcom Long-Term Recovery Group Director, which is a nonprofit organization that helps people rebuild after climate disasters. So that's been a huge reason. So the experience I learned as mayor, and then even the work I do now to help people that can't afford it to elevate homes. We've talked about housing and how important it is. We've got to help people to do that. So thank you.
And Ms. Reinstra, same question. Why should you be elected over your challenger?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you so much for having us. I'm Jessica Reenstra, also running for Whatcom County Council in District 3. I work as a nurse practitioner. I specialize in mental health and psychiatry. I am also one of your elected charter review commissioners and a small business owner. I was born and raised in rural Whatcom County. Hi, Mom. And I am running because I really believe that where we live should not be determining how well we live. As a healthcare provider, I have seen how these social drivers of health, like safe housing and reliable transportation and good jobs and access to care, are really shaping our opportunities and our overall well-being. And I've heard it say that, health is not really the center part of county government, and I could not disagree more. We see how these social drivers of health at the council level are directly tied to the budget, because every dollar that we're putting into prevention saves many more in crisis response later on. For the past 20 years, I have worked in healthcare and public service, in clinic management, in grant management, and I've learned over and over again that prevention is always more effective and affordable than waiting for crisis to hit. And that is whether we're keeping a family in stable housing, as many talked about earlier, or making childcare more affordable so that our kids can get the strong start that they need in life and in school. I want to make sure that everyone has access to the same opportunities that I did to build a good life here in Whatcom County. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think I mispronounced your names. Reinstra, Reenstra?
Reenstra.
Reenstra.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Reenstra, the county is facing a budget shortfall. To balance the budget, would you raise revenue, and if so, how? Would you cut expenses, and if so, which specific services would you reduce or eliminate?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I know it is at the top of mind for most people right now. And I'm also wanting to give our current council some props for the work that they have been doing on this. They're already working quite a bit on looking at the biennial budget. Next year, I think 318 million, the following 381, whereas last year it was 429. So they're already doing this work and making cuts. And the departments have been giving exercises to look at where they could potentially make 5% cuts across the board. So there is a ton of work that is already being done, so not having to come in with a blank slate. But I think when we're talking about the budget, we really have to understand that we're talking about our values. And to me, the most important values is protecting our kids and our families. And we know that every dollar that we do invest into childcare saves us $9 later on in reduced incarceration rates, in health costs, and in our social services. And that's why I would not be cutting prevention services, because it's short-sighted and incredibly costly. At the same time, we really need accountability to know where our tax dollars are going and to make sure there's transparency in how that is being spent. And that's why I fought really hard on the Charter Review Commission to ensure that we had performance auditor measures come through that will be on the ballot this November that you can vote on, so that we know where our tax dollars are going and we know if they're being used effectively. We certainly do need to tighten where we can, but really importantly, not balance the books on the backs of our vulnerable populations and families. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Christensen, the same question. The county is facing a budget shortfall. to balance the budget? Would you raise revenue, and if so, how? Would you cut expenses, and if so, which specific services would you reduce or eliminate?
Yeah, this is a very important question. And I would say, well, sorry about the feedback. All right, can you hear me? Okay. All right.
He's working on it.
Check, 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 check. Okay. So I would say to bring up revenue, we have to do a better job. And I think the Port of Bellingham and Whatcom County have economic development funding available to support business growth. And I think that's an area where we can bring in more revenue. It was just last month when I was attending the county council meeting where Executive Sadhu said, hey, revenues are down. And so that really affects budgets. And so we really need to look at opportunities. And I know the Port of Bellingham has a lot of good things on their radar as far as bringing in more businesses to get that boost in revenue. But specifically talking about the budget, I agree that we need to maintain critical services. That's so important to what we do at the county level. And I would support, like Jessica said, about pulling back that budget. And I would say that as mayor, like I said, we went through 3 floods in COVID, and we met budget every single year, even with doing all of these extra things that we had no control over, right? And so I think a lot of it is looking at what we do well with the budget and then looking at areas of improvement. And I think sometimes in government, we don't do a good job of checking to see how these tax dollars, how this revenue is used when we set these budgets. We need to do a good job of looking at, and maybe with fresh eyes, and say, how can we improve this? So thank you.
Mr. Christensen, the next one is for you. Years of failure to resolve who gets how much water and protect salmon habitat have led to state-managed water rights adjudication. What responsibility does the county council have in the adjudication process to, 1, advocate for Whatcom residents, and 2, increase water availability?
Yeah, this is a really big question. I believe there was 35,000 summons that went out talking about water adjudication. And obviously there's a lot of people that are very concerned about this. So specifically to that, you have the Department of Ecology that is the ones behind the lawsuit. And I think it's difficult. Whatcom County is in a very difficult position on how they can be in the middle here. I think Whatcom County as a government needs to be, if you will, not taking either side, because right now the Department of Ecology is suing the people. If you look at the actual legal lawsuit, and yet the Department of Ecology is actually who the people that are being sued are supposed to go to get information. So we have a very big problem here that with this water adjudication lawsuit. So I think the county needs to, if anything, if they have to take a side, they need to support the people that have been using this water for generations and generations. And I believe collaboration between all of the interested parties, the Lummi Nation, the Department of Ecology, we all need to get together, because when you come to a lawsuit, we saw over on the east side of the state, it went on for over 30 years, and they still ended up settling. So I'm calling for everybody to come together, because as soon as we start fighting as a community, that's where we get into trouble, and we hurt each other and the broader community. Thank you.
Ms. Riensta, years of failure to resolve who gets how much water and protect salmon habitat have led to state-managed water rights adjudication. What responsibility does the county council have in the adjudication process to, 1, advocate for Whatcom residents, and 2, increase water availability?
Yeah, thank you. We know that water is really life for Whatcom County, for our fish, for our families, and for our farms. And how we manage it is going to be shaping our economy and the environment and our way of life moving forward into the future. We know that the tribal treaty rights guarantee flows for salmon, but many of our rivers and streams are not currently meeting those flows today. We also know that our farmers are depending on reliable irrigation, but without conservation and efficiency tools, agriculture can face growing uncertainty. So at the county level, I want to push for collaborative water planning because it isn't about taking sides, it is about collaboration. And respecting those treaty rights, sustaining the salmon, and also keeping farms viable. And that means supporting watershed management, that means funding culvert removal and riparian buffer restoration, and also investing in conservation infrastructure like irrigation efficiency. The county can truly play a convening and collaborative role here, bringing the tribes, farmers, and communities together for habitat restoration, for smarter water use, and water adjudication is here and it is happening, right? And so it's really important at the county level that we make sure that people are treated fairly throughout this entire process. That means providing clear information, helping residents navigate the paperwork and all of the questions that come along with it, and finding innovative solutions so that we can get the water that we need while we're protecting our river and our salmon for future generations.
Thank you, and we'll stay with you, Ms. Reenstra. The council oversees the public health board for the county. What are our most important public health challenges, and how would you meet and fund them?
Yeah, thank you. It's difficult to pick just one, but I do think, as it was mentioned earlier, when we're looking at addiction and behavioral health and the impact they have both on our economy and the overall well-being of each member in our community, we have to ensure that we're maximizing and really making robust services that are available to everybody in the county. We know that we have kids in middle school who are experiencing thoughts and feelings of suicide. We have reports that 1 in 3 are dealing with depression. That's heartbreaking and staggering, and it's showing us that these crises are starting really young. We also know that in our jails, a lot of folks are dealing with addiction and also struggling with mental health illness. And so it is not just a burden that's on our families, it's also putting significant strain on our justice system. We really need to work on strengthening our evidence-based diversion programs so that people struggling with addiction and mental illness can get the help they need before they end up in jail. We also know that the voters passed our behavioral health and justice sales tax with that promise that 50% of those dollars were going to go to behavioral health. I'll certainly commit to making sure that that is how we use that money. I want to be making sure that our tax dollars are being used in the smartest way possible, and that includes funding prevention, treatment, and crisis services that reduce future costs for us and also keep our community safe. Thank you.
Mr. Christensen, the council oversees the public health board for the county. What are our most important public health challenges, and how would you meet and fund them?
All right. So I would say addictions and mental health are just such a huge priority and should be for us right now. When I've been a volunteer firefighter for over 25 years. I was a deputy in Oregon for a number of years, and I saw firsthand what happened with addictions and mental health. And I really feel like that should be one of our priorities moving forward in providing programs. And I've seen successful programs and research successful programs. And as we're talking about a new jail and what that balance is of incarceration and looking for like diversion programs, it's not an either or, it's an and different situations and different needs, and depending on what the different things, and I know that everybody's going to qualify for different things based on their crimes, but I really want to see like work release programs, rehabilitation, because that's really how we help people to be an impactful part of the community. When we talk about homelessness, there is a lot of that mental health, drug addiction, and we need to meet them where they're at and help them to be able to see that they can improve. And a lot of that has to happen. It takes funding, it takes programs. I'm also all about keeping people safe, obviously, with my background. So it's a balance of doing both. We need to keep people safe, and sometimes that means incarceration, but man, we can do a lot better with the mental health side of that.
Next question is for you, Mr. Christensen. Many perceive that we have a drug and alcohol addiction and mental health crisis, particularly amongst our chronically unhoused neighbors. What would you do to address these health crises?
Yeah, it just kind of goes into what I was just talking about, is we've got to get out there and have programs that actually are effective, and that means being with these people. And I think that when you start talking about homelessness, there's a certain amount of people that it takes a lot of time for them to actually come around to want to improve or want to go through a program. And so I think it's just constant working with them and being there and listening, interacting with them. And I think where you see homelessness programs and rehabilitation programs that don't work is when you have programs where people are just sitting in an office instead of being out with the people they need to be interacting with. So I would support any programs that are really focused about getting out and engaging with people, because that's where it starts. It starts with relationship and being able to find out where people are at, and it takes people that are willing to do that. And that's where I think we've seen the most successful programs. And even talking about schools, we've seen a rise in suicide rates and a lot of confusion. And you just look whether anywhere in culture, the kids have access to so many different things online and through social media. So we need to make sure that this is all the way from elderly all the way down to young kids, because this is a bigger problem than just one population or one age group. So I think this is something we really need to focus on.
Ms. Veenstra, the same question. Many perceive that we have a drug and alcohol addiction and mental health crisis, particularly amongst our chronically unhoused neighbors. What would you do to address these health issues?
Yeah, thank you so much. This does build on kind of our last question and answer a bit. But I know that there are, again, a lot of programs that have come in that have been really exciting. The Swinomish tribe has partnered, bringing in a methadone clinic into the area for folks to be able to have access to. And I think it's these types of innovative programs, meeting people where they're at and collaborating and partnering with other experts in these fields, that are going to see the most change and the most progress, and we're also going to be able to do in the most affordable way with our tax dollars. When thinking about the houselessness portion of this, we know that everybody deserves to have a safe place to sleep and certainly to be able to get back on their feet. We also know that when people don't have stable housing, it really affects our whole community, our health, our safety, and our economy. And I know the studies that I was reading about the different counts, we saw that over 670 houses were experiencing homelessness, which was a 1/3 increase in just a year's time. And the number of people that were living unsheltered had nearly doubled during that time. So we're seeing more people fall through the cracks. So this should be kind of a flag for us to give more attention to this issue. We can't just be responding when folks are already living on the street. We need prevention, we need housing, we need services all working together. That means rental assistance to stop evictions. That means rapid rehousing programs to move people quickly back into their homes, and more shelter beds so that no one has to sleep outside. Thank you.
And sticking with you, Ms. Veenstra, how and where would you increase housing units across the county, particularly for low-income households? What is the best use of agricultural land as we add housing?
Yeah, thank you. Really, again, important question, so thanks for all of these great topics. When we're looking at where to put affordable housing, I think we also have to look at, is that housing available? And so it has to be affordable and available housing. I think that we can all agree that families who work in Whatcom County should be able to live here in the areas that they work. When it's too expensive, we're seeing it push people out of different neighborhoods. We're seeing employers having a harder time finding workers, and we're also seeing the stress that it puts on our farmlands and our open spaces. More than half of our renters here are already income burdened, and the average home costs over $630,000 in the county, which would require more than twice of the average Whatcom County income to afford. So it's really not something that is even attainable for many people. When we're looking at this population growth and a lot of these new homes being single-family houses and being built on the higher end of the market, it really is leaving out our teachers, it's leaving out our nurses, it's leaving out our farm workers, it's leaving out young families wanting to get into homes for the first time. I want to support zoning updates that make it easier to build that missing middle housing. So we're looking at things like adding duplexes and townhomes and accessory dwelling units and really focusing that growth inside of cities where a lot of our services and infrastructure already exist. And I want to work to streamline permitting these projects so that we don't have things that are ending up postponed for years and years, push for inclusionary housing policies and incentives for builders so that we actually get these affordable units out there and on the market. Thank you.
And Mr. Christensen, How and where would you increase housing units across the county, particularly for low-income households? And what is the best use of agricultural land as we add housing?
Oh, this is such a topic near and dear to my heart when you start talking about housing. So I'm a real estate agent in Washington State. And so what I see is we don't have enough supply like we've talked about. So when you're talking about affordable housing, when you have a low supply of housing and you have the growth that we're expected to see over the next 10 years in Whatcom County, then we need to make it easier for people to build. So I would support, and there's a lot of cities that are doing a great job of moving infrastructure to have it in place to those urban growth areas where we know that we can expand and try to catch up with the lack of housing that we see in Whatcom County. So I think that's one of the quickest and easiest ways is every city, and right now they're going through the comprehensive plan. We already have these urban growth areas established, is we need to get infrastructure to that, and by that I mean utilities, because then you're going to be able to build affordable housing because you don't have the cost of, if it's somewhere out in outside of a city, you have septic, you have wells, you have all of these other expenses. So the real issue is we've got to be able to provide opportunities for developers, investors, and contractors to be able to come in and build the housing we need. As we've mentioned, even rental prices are affected. People think, oh, it's just about buying or renting. When you have a low supply, it drives up everything. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Christensen, the next question is for you. What policy and funding changes would you make to improve the county's emergency and disaster preparedness for wildfires, earthquakes, floods, landslides, and train derailments?
Thank you. Again, this is near and dear to my heart. Wow. I have that kind of effect on people, I guess. So anyway, I would point back to my mayor time and then even as the flood recovery manager, because we focused a lot on, we learned through those disasters we went through, how to be more prepared for the next ones. And so I would say a priority for me on the council would be to have a emergency fund specific to response to natural disasters. The problem is what happens is we create funds and then we rob from them and start using them for what they weren't intended to use for. So I would say that's one of the biggest things, because right after the flood, it was the people, local businesses, and nonprofits that showed up with money, because government is very slow in getting money to come in a disaster. So I would say having a fund that is specific, that can't be touched for anything other than an emergency disaster response, is going to be a way to help people the very next day. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that we're running into is here we have fears of earthquakes, fires. We've seen what the fires are. We're at more risk for fires now than we used to be. So it's not just flooding. So we have all these extreme weather events, and we need to be prepared. There's already a lot that's been done, but we can do better by having that fund so that we know it's there and available when we need it. Because that was the biggest thing the day after the flood, is we were coordinating response efforts. We needed water, we needed blankets, we needed places to house people, and we should be better prepared.
Thank you. And Ms. Reenstra, what policy and funding changes would you make to improve the county's emergency and disaster preparedness for wildfires, earthquakes, floods, landslides, and train derailments?
Yeah, thank you. Also a really important topic for me. We know that in the 2021 Nooksack flood, we had more than $100 million of damages, and thousands of people were displaced from their homes, and I was one of those people. A lot of the communities in our district still remain at risk from flooding, while others face wildfire danger, as Mr. Christensen said. And in some rural areas, there's only one route in and out if there needs to be an evacuation. And that's a concern that I've heard from residents across the county, in Sudden Valley and East County. We know that these changes in our environment are bringing more frequent floods, they're bringing more frequent wildfires, and they're putting our safety and our economy at risk. I know that the recovery work is really important, and I definitely respect that, but again, we need to be looking at putting just as much focus on prevention and preparedness. And so every dollar that we invest in our floodplain management, our wildfire protection, and our emergency planning is going to be saving us again in those recovery costs later on. I want to see upgrades to our levees, our stormwater systems, having better planning around these evacuation routes, and then expanding this CERT training, so this community emergency response training, so that when there aren't people in the area, neighbors can be helping neighbors, and there are responses that are available there. Protecting our farmland and forest is also a huge part of this, because they're going to buffer us against these climate risks while also preserving our way of life. It's really important that we work closely with our tribes, with our farmers, with our local leaders to make sure that we're not just reacting to these disasters, but again, building this real resilience so that families can feel secure today.
Thank you. And our final question for today, Ms. Reenstra, I'll get it right eventually. The jail is the largest public works project ever undertaken in Whatcom County. What will you do to make sure that the number of beds built for both jail and behavioral health populations are appropriate?
Yeah, thank you. The jail has to be the right size for the needs of our community. I'm really grateful that there are a significant amount of experts that are already working on this, talking through what that looks like, what the funding and costs would be associated with those beds. And again, when we look at creating these prevention programs, behavioral health, mental health resources, and diversion programs, we see that that also impacts the number of beds that we do need. The folks that are being housed in our jails are not only violent criminals, and many of them could be better served in outside settings with supervision and treatment. When we are looking at our staff that are working inside of our jail, we need to make sure we're also able to be filling those positions. I know right now, after talking with Sheriff Tanksley, there's quite a few vacancies. And so in order to be protecting the safety of those who are working for our public safety and serving us, if we're building a facility that's larger than we can staff, that's a concern for me. We need to make sure that the working conditions are safe so that we do have a safe facility, but we also need to make sure that these staffing ratios are safe so that they can go home safely to their families at the end of the day as well. And it's really our responsibility to be prioritizing these reforms through these diversion and treatment programs while also ensuring that we're providing this safe environment for staff and workers. When we have incentives to hiring and we focus on retaining staff as well as supporting the health and well-being of those already working there, we know that we can have a healthier workforce as well. So any conversation that continues to happen around this facility really has to match the staffing levels that we can support there. Thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Christensen, your last question. The jail is the largest public works project ever undertaken in Whatcom County. What will you do to make sure that the number of beds built for both jail and behavioral health populations are appropriate?
Yeah, I think that I would say there's been a lot of research already done about what those numbers look like. And I would just add that it is important to make sure you have enough staff to be able to do this, which everything ties back into what are we trying to accomplish here? We're trying to accomplish two things. We've needed a new jail for how many years? We've known that the conditions are really poor, and if I was still in law enforcement, I probably wouldn't even want to work there just because of the conditions. So I think that we need to focus on, and I'm so encouraged that the council right now is making this a priority because it's been something we've needed to do for a long time. And I love the behavioral health part of this to where we're really accomplishing two things. We're expanding our opportunities to help people that we haven't been able to help before in a way we haven't been able to help them, while improving a facility that is outdated, that has multiple safety issues, and is something that has needed to be done for a long time. So I think, again, when it comes to the numbers, there's a lot of experts already working on that. I would just make sure that we have this thing about just building to capacity when we do schools, and we need to be looking longer term, and I would say we need to do that with the same setup here with the jail. Don't think, what do we need today? We need to be thinking at least 5 to 10 years in the future, and we should do that for schools too.
Okay. Thank you both very much for participating today. Jerry, come on up. Thank you. We have, as we often do when we're live from Bellingham, a wrinkle, and that is Misty Flowers, who is Mr. Buchanan's opponent, is ill, which we found out just a few minutes before we started. Normally, our practice is that if somebody can't make it for a reason like that, they can send somebody to make an opening statement. Since we didn't know, we're not able to do that today. So we will have a slightly different set of questions for Mr. Buchanan than the last set for County Council, but we'll go through the questions with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
No offense to Kyle, but I'm not going to use his mic.
Okay, all right. Let me know when you're ready.
Oh, anytime.
You're ready, okay. Mr. Buchanan, why should you be You can't hear me? Dan? How's that? Thank you. Mr. Buchanan, why should you be reelected?
Well, thank you. And I just kind of want to spend a second just introducing myself to everyone. I know most of you, but I'm Barry Buchanan, currently the incumbent on the Whatcom County Council at-large seat. And I have made public service part of my life and for my entire life. Starting with the United States Navy, I served 7 years with the Navy. When I got home here to Bellingham, I served as the president of my Leonard Street Neighborhood Association and worked on a lot of issues that we've talked about today, like housing and others. And then I was elected to the Bellingham City Council, served 1 term there, and then was elected to the Whatcom County Council. So I've really made this a centerpiece of my life's work, is serving the public. And I think what I've done throughout my career is involve the community in all my decision making. We've talked a little bit about the jail. I assembled a team that was put together a needs assessment that was led by the community. And my philosophy is that we are our own greatest resources. Our greatest resources are each other. And we can do things together to make our county better. And I want to continue to do that work. And thank you.
Next question. The county is facing a budget shortfall. To balance the budget, would you raise revenue, and if so, how? Would you cut expenses, and if so, which specific services would you reduce or eliminate?
So as was mentioned earlier, the county is going through an exercise right now of doing a budget prioritization during our mid-biennium review. We are in the middle of that biennium. It's a 25-26 budget. One of the steps that have been taken is to freeze vacant positions, and that's made quite an impact. We're also doing what are called a lot of lapsing of projects. That's a delay of projects like the Northwest Annex. We have appropriated some money for that, but we aren't going to take it on at this time because, quite honestly, the jail is a big enough bite right now for a capital project for the county. So I think as far on the revenue side, we do have this public safety tax that I think was mentioned earlier. That is a 0.1% sales tax that could fund other public safety items like a new sheriff's office, which we desperately need. But that's a consideration that may take place next year.
Rural businesses and housing development depend on water availability. With water adjudication predicted to take years to resolve who gets how much water, what specific solutions would you implement to provide adequate water now and for the foreseeable future?
Well, I think, number one, we have to support the process. We know this process is underway, and the council has to appropriate the funding necessary to get through the adjudication process, and we've done so. We have gotten an additional position on the Superior Court to have a Superior Court judge adjudicate the proceedings. We've also had a sit-down with we've tried the collaborative approach. It was called the Solutions Table. I don't know if anybody remembers hearing about that, but that was early on in the current executive's term. And we got all the folks at the table, but just could not arrive at any workable solutions. So now we are proceeding down the adjudication route. The one thing I want to make clear is we do have to support our citizens and make sure that they have the legal knowledge and representation that they need to navigate this process, because it's very, very difficult. And Yakima actually took 40 years to get through that process. So it's something that's going to be ongoing, and I just want to support the process and make sure it's fair.
Thank you. With so much public health confusion at the national level, how should the County Council guide the Health Department in delivering public health information and services?
As far as delivering information, I think that's something that the county gets a kind of almost a failing grade on communications, and we have to work on that. We have to work on that across the board, whether it be for the jail or whether it be for public health. I think we're doing a better job than we used to. We had some problems during COVID of how to get information out to the public. But with the climate we have now, we have to be clear what's science and what is distorted policy. And I think that's really important for us to recognize here locally, because our local health department is really following the science as far as a lot of the kind of reconciling what the feds are doing compared to what we're doing here and in the state. We know that Washington has now joined with California and Oregon and Hawaii to form a coalition and a health coalition that's going to be basically coming up with vaccine recommendations for our region.
It'll be years before the new jail and behavioral health center are completed. To reduce alcohol and drug addiction and increase mental health services now, what would you do and how would you pay for it?
Well, I think we're off to a good start. We have the, it was mentioned earlier, we have the Swinomish project. It's called Dijualik, and it is a SUD treatment center that has a methadone clinic. It's mobile, and we're thinking about adding another unit. The unit we have right now is out at Division, which is out in the Iron Gate neighborhood. So it's close to our Ann Deacon Center for Hope. So we're trying to build that campus up to be something that people can use as a one-stop shop for both mental health and addiction and alcohol. I think we can do more with the homeless community as having wraparound services that address people when they're at their worst need, which is at the sheltering level. It's all about a continuum. We have to be able to move folks through a continuum of treatment, and housing is so important to that. So that they have to merge somehow. We have to make sure that our unhoused folks get the housing support they need, as well as the treatment and other services that they need.
Okay. What role, if any, should county government take to reduce the cost of home construction? Should the county fund more housing, either directly or indirectly?
Well, that's a complicated question. I'm glad you asked it. Things that I think are important that we can do with the resources that we have is our economic development investment funds. We have advocated strongly, our council, to the state legislature, that we would be able to use EDI funding, that's economic development investment funds. It's a sales tax for housing, for affordable housing. And that did get through the legislature, so now we have a housing component to our EDI investing. We just recently funded we were the last dollars in for a very awesome project called the Bellis Fair Senior Project. So it's it's going to be 65 units of senior housing for workforce housing out near the Bellis Fair area. And I was very proud of our council for stepping up and recognizing that there are seniors still in the workforce that need to have that kind of workforce housing. So I was really happy that we did that. And I also think we need to be looking at the balance between the private equity system that we currently live in and how we can get more of a balance with the public land trust model and merge those two and be able to get more permanent affordable housing.
Thank you. Preventing and responding to disasters such as floods and fires can require cross-border cooperation. How would you manage these issues given the current state of Canadian and U.S. relations?
Wow. that is so far out of purview for the county council. I would just say that everybody needs to play together, and we need to recognize that. Like I mentioned before, we are our own greatest resources, and we have to get this on a human level rather than on some spat between federal governments. And I wish I had the answer to that. I know it's in my heart, and I would love to see that transpire. But I think on the subject of flooding and fires, one thing that I have asked our sheriff to do is to put together a pretty comprehensive presentation of how we would deal. This all came about, remember our tsunami alert we got a month and a half ago or so? Well, everybody started thinking about, wow, what would we do? What are those evacuation routes? And that is a huge thing. The evacuation routes, like from Sudden Valley, which was mentioned earlier, are very limited. And also, what's our mutual aid response with our federal and our state partners? I want to get all those folks into this presentation and be able to share with the community how things like huge wildfire events and flood events and like a tsunami event, how we would handle that and how we would have other partners to help us.
Thank you. And your last question. The jail is the largest public works project ever undertaken in Whatcom County. What will you do to make sure it is completed on time and within budget?
So the one thing about the budget is we don't have one yet, and that frustrates me. We are sitting now with a approximation of what we think the number of beds should be, but we don't have a dollar figure. So for us to be able to definitively say it's going to be size A and it's going to have these components, it's a little premature. However, what I think we need to have, and I want to kind of relate to your other question for our District 3 candidates, is about how we do behavioral health and in the jail and outside the jail. So we have the behavioral care center model that we observed in Nashville, and that's a prosecutorial diversion program for those folks that qualify and have behavioral health issues. We also have the ability to have flexible cells that can be used for behavioral health treatment services or a standard inmate cell. So building flexibility into the jail itself can be a cost-saving measure because we're not doubling up resources, and we're trying to think ahead and think of what kind of things would we need to have in our jail to be able to provide those services. It's much more effective to move the services into the inmates than it is to move the inmates into the services. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you very much. You're done.
Thank you.
We finished a few minutes early because unfortunately Ms. Flowers was ill. Just as a reminder of what Jill said, next month in October we have quite a full menu of things for you, including the Port Commissioner candidates, the Port Commission expansion from 3 to 5 commissioners. There'll be a pro and con discussion of that. Dr. Baker from the Bellingham School District will be here to present his view of why a whole new levy needs to be added, and we will have questions for him. And also the charter review the charter is our constitution, basically, and how the county operates, and they are recommending some changes. So we'll jam all that in October, and I hope to see you then. Thank you. And if you could throw your dishes away, there's some waste baskets up there, but if you could do that for us, that'd be a big help. Thank you so much for coming.